My daughter took my villa and gave it to her husband's family. She said, "It's theirs now." Hey guys, before we start today's video, I need your help. I've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways that you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. I always believed that raising a child meant giving them the best of yourself, the best years of your life, and all the dreams you once put on hold. From the moment my daughter Sophia was born, I vowed to never let her feel the pain I had known growing up. My childhood was full of hardship, my parents were distant, and affection was as rare as wealth in our broken neighborhood. I wanted to give Sophia everything I didn't have, and so I did. From her first steps to her final day at university, I was there. I supported her not only financially but emotionally, even when things between me and her mother ended. The divorce was hard, but Sophia stayed with me. She said she couldn't leave me alone, that she knew how much I had given up for her, and I had. I built a villa from the ground up after years of working long shifts, investing every penny into that home, not just for myself, but for Sophia. It was meant to be her haven, a symbol of our journey. When she met Marcus, I welcomed him with open arms. He seemed polite, ambitious, respectful, the kind of man I'd want for my daughter. Didn't see the cracks until much later. They got married in the villa's garden, under the olive trees I planted when she was 10. I thought it was poetic. I didn't know then that I'd one day be forced out of that same house. Marcus was charming at first, always offering to help, complimenting me, calling me dad like he truly meant it. Sophia beamed when he was around. Her happiness was my happiness, so I didn't question the little things, like how he'd sometimes bring up the villa in casual conversation, asking if I ever thought about downsizing. Or when he'd ask if I had a will in place, suggesting it's something responsible people do. I brushed it off. He was just being thoughtful, I told myself. They moved in after the wedding, and I moved into the guest house, thinking it would give them space and privacy. It felt natural. After all, it was still our family home. But slowly, things shifted. The locks were changed one day without me. Being told, they said it was for security. My mail started getting redirected. The staff I had hired for years suddenly stopped taking my calls. Marcus hired new people. Sophia said it was just time for a fresh start. I still didn't push back. I didn't want to be that kind of father, the one who suffocates their adult child with control or guilt. But then came the day I walked to the front door and was told by the new housekeeper that I needed to use the back entrance from now on. That's when something inside me cracked. I confronted Sophia gently. I didn't want to create drama, so I simply asked her what was going on, why things felt different. She smiled genuinely, I think, and said, "Dad, it's not like that. Marcus just wants to modernize things. You're still welcome here, of course. But welcome as what? A guest? In the home I built, the home I laid bricks for with my own hands." It was the first time I felt like a stranger in my own life. The air inside the house felt heavier, colder. Marcus avoided me more often. I began to notice family photos being rearranged, my presence in them fading slowly. First, they moved a few into a side hallway. Then they disappeared entirely. I mentioned it once to Sophia, and she laughed, saying, "You're being paranoid." But I wasn't. Something had changed. A week later, I returned from a short trip to visit an old friend, only to find the guest house locked. My belongings were packed in boxes outside. No explanation, no message, just my life in cardboard. I called Sophia, and she finally said it. "Dad, we need to talk." We met at a cafe nearby. Her tone was different, calm, firm, rehearsed. She explained that Marcus's family was going through a hard time, that their home had been repossessed due to debts, and they needed a place to stay. I nodded, thinking she meant temporarily. But then she said it. "We've decided to give them the villa. They'll move in next week." I blinked. "Them the villa?" I asked, not quite comprehending. "You mean let them stay?" She shook her head. "No, Dad. It's theirs now. I transferred the property into Marcus's name. He's added his parents. It's official. My heart stopped. Couldn't breathe for a moment. That house. It was supposed to be her inheritance. Our shared legacy. You didn't even ask me? I managed to say. She looked at me like a mother explaining something to a confused child. You always said it was for me, right? Well, I'm making the decision for my family now. My family, not our family. That was the moment I realized Di wasn't part of her world anymore. I was a burden being politely removed. I went home, or what was once home only, to find Marcus already instructing movers, giving out keys to his in-laws. I wasn't even allowed inside. You can collect your things from the garage, he said, without making eye contact. Sophia wasn't there. She couldn't face me. I slept in my car that night, parked outside the gates. The same gates I installed with my own hands. I stared at the balcony where I used to sit with Sophia, telling her bedtime stories, sipping cocoa in the winter. Now someone else stood there, Marcus's father, smoking, staring into the distance like he owned the view. Maybe he did now. The paperwork said so. But I didn't care about the title. I cared about what it meant. My daughter, my only child, had given away the one thing that represented everything I had sacrificed for her, and she did it without hesitation, without remorse. The next morning, I checked into a cheap motel. I had some savings left, thankfully untouched. I spent days replaying everything. Where did I go wrong? Was I too soft? Did I raise her to believe that love meant unlimited giving? I couldn't understand how someone who once cried when I missed a school recital could now lock me out of my own life. The worst part? She didn't call. Not even once. I spoke to a lawyer who confirmed the transfer was legal. Since the villa had been gifted to Sophia a year ago, she had full control. And now it belonged to Marcus. There was nothing I could do unless. I wanted to start a long, expensive legal war against my own daughter. I didn't have the strength, not for that. Thought about leaving the city altogether, starting fresh somewhere far away. But then I saw a news article that changed everything. Marcus's family was under investigation for fraud. Financial fraud involving multiple shell companies. I couldn't believe it. My blood boiled. They had conned my daughter, or maybe she was in on it too. I printed the article and went straight to Sophia's workplace. She worked in a sleek glass tower, dressed in perfection, smiling at everyone as if her world was untouched. When she saw me in the lobby, her face dropped not with guilt, but with annoyance. She pulled me into a side hallway and hissed, "What are you doing here?" I handed her the article without saying a word. She scanned it, lips tightening, eyes narrowing. So, she finally said, "I couldn't believe the indifference. They're scammers, Sophia," I whispered. "You gave away everything to people who might lose it all in court." She folded the paper slowly and said, "They're my husband's family. You wouldn't understand." That line stung. I wouldn't understand. I gave her everything, and now I was being treated like an outsider for pointing out the truth. "I understand betrayal," I said softly, "and blindness." She turned away and walked off without a word. That night, I called my lawyer again. We began gathering whatever we could, old emails, property records, proof that the villa was built with my personal funds before Sophia ever had her name on it. Maybe I couldn't win back the house, but I could at least reveal the truth about Marcus's family. As the investigation into Marcus's in-laws intensified, more details surfaced. Their previous home hadn't been taken due to hardship, but because of illicit dealings involving real estate scams. They had sold properties they never owned. Marcus's father had been charged once before, but settled privately. My heart sank with every new detail. I had let these people into my life, had let them into my home. I had watched in silence as they claimed what wasn't theirs. I hired a private investigator to dig deeper. He found records that Marcus had been listed on multiple offshore accounts linked to the same fraudulent properties. I gathered everything and brought it to the authorities. I didn't tell Sophia. I didn't warn her. Couldn't trust her anymore. When the raid happened, it was on a Tuesday. Police cars rolled up to my Villano. Their Villano escorted Marcus's parents out in handcuffs.
Sophia called me
That evening in tears. "You knew," she said. I didn't deny it. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. I replied, "Because you didn't want to listen. You made your choice. Now live with it." Sophia tried to backtrack, she claimed. She didn't know that Marcus never told her about his family's past, but she had signed the property documents. She had transferred ownership with a smile. When I had questioned her, she had stood by him. I told her the villa was gone now. It would likely be seized in the investigation. She sobbed, not for me, but for herself, for the lifestyle she had just lost, for the image she had built. I sat there quietly as she cried, realizing how little we had left between us. The foundation I thought I had built in her heart had eroded. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt empty. My own daughter had watched as I was exiled from my own life, and now she mourned the consequences not of betrayal, but of inconvenience. I offered her one thing, that day-end invitation to dinner. No strings, no judgment, just a chance to talk. She didn't show up. And that, more than anything, sealed the truth. In the following weeks, my story somehow made its way online. A journalist who had followed the fraud case asked to speak with me. I refused at first. But then I realized maybe my silence had allowed this to grow. Maybe others needed to hear what I had learned too late. That love is not ownership, but it's also not surrender. That trust should have limits. That giving without boundaries is not noble, it's dangerous. I shared my side. The story went viral. Messages poured in from people who had faced similar betrayals, parents, guardians, grandparents, people who had given their all, only to be tossed aside when their usefulness expired. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. My pain wasn't unique, but it had a voice now. And through it, I began to heal, not by reclaiming property, but by reclaiming perspective. I moved to a small apartment near the sea. The view wasn't as grand, but it was mine. Every book on the shelf, every teacup, every photograph was placed by my own hand. No one could take that from me. Sophia sent me a letter 2 months later. Not an email, a letter. Handwritten. She said she had moved out, that she had filed for divorce. She finally saw what I had tried to warn her about. She apologized, not just with words, but with humility. She asked if she could visit me sometime. I stared at the letter for a long time, to ignore it. But I didn't. I wrote back with just 2 words. Let's talk. She came the following Sunday. We sat on the porch and spoke for hours. Not just about the villa or Marcus, but about everything. Childhood, memories, her mother, her dreams, her regrets. I saw my daughter again, not the stranger I had faced, but the child I once carried on my shoulders. She cried. I didn't. My tears had long since dried. But I held her hand, and in that moment, I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, just makes space for the future. In the months that followed, Sophia worked to rebuild our relationship. She visited often, helped me around the apartment, asked for advice like she used to. Something had changed in me too. I no longer placed her above my own peace. I had boundaries now. I said no when I needed to. Out. And she respected that. I saw her grow, not just in guilt, but in strength. She started volunteering at a legal aid center, helping people avoid the traps she once fell into. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. As for the villa, it was repossessed and eventually sold at auction. I didn't attend. I didn't. Carrot wasn't home anymore. My home was wherever I could sit in silence without fear, where I could drink tea in the morning sun and know that no one would knock to take it from me. One afternoon, as we walked by the shore, Sophia asked me, "Will you ever trust me the way you used to?" I looked at her at the sincerity in her eyes and answered honestly, "No, but I don't need to. I trust myself now, and that's enough." She nodded, understanding. The moment felt more real than any apology. Because sometimes the wounds don't heal into smooth skin, they scar. And those scars remind you not of the pain, but of the lesson. I no longer needed the villa or the title of Father of the Year. I just needed peace. And finally, I had it. People often ask me now if I'd ever leave anything to Sophia again: money, property, security. My answer is simple. I'll give her wisdom, the kind earned through fire. The rest, she must earn. Not because I love her less, but because I love myself more now. Generosity without boundaries is not love, it's surrender. I'm done surrendering. I write this not to shame her, but to remind others. Never forget yourself in the process of giving, because the moment you erase your own lines, others will redraw them for you. And often, they won't be kind. Today, I wake up in a small but sunny apartment, birds outside my window, a stack of books by my bed, and a notebook on my desk. That notebook holds letters to myself, reminders of who I am, what I've survived, and what I've learned. Sophia visits sometimes. We talk, we laugh. But we live separately now, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. And that's okay. Some bridges don't need to be rebuilt. They need to be remembered as they were before they burned. My villa may be gone, but my voice remains. And through that voice, I've reclaimed more than a home. I've reclaimed me.